Good leaders really have the combination of things. You have to be a strong strategic thinker, first of all. New ideas develop or are born when different fields or different expertise areas collide. So we seek to enable this.
Okay, and here we are again for another episode of the FLT podcast, the Finnish Leadership team. I am delighted to say that today we're joined by Kristiina Mäkelä. Kristiina, how are you today?
I'm very good, thank you.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Kristiina is the Provost at Aalto University, probably the leading academic institution in Finland. As always, Kristiina, we've prepared a little bit of an introduction for you. Anneli, would you do the honors?
Yes, thank you. So, Kristiina, you are Provost at the Aalto University, a role which is rare in Finland, more common elsewhere. Here is how you describe your role in common terms. I'm involved in many things. I move around the campus a lot. I deal with difficult personnel matters and financial issues. I speak at various events and meet a lot of people. More officially, as the Provost, you are sort of the COO of Aalto, i.e. you are in charge of the university's academic activities, including overseeing research, education, and impact-related activities. In your role, you also deal with Aalto's leadership topics and are responsible for equity, diversity, and inclusion. Aalto is a large organization with its 400 million euro annual budget, 4,000 personnel, and 14,000 students. You have got a doctorate from the Helsinki School of Economics. Before joining Aalto, you worked at the Hanken School of Economics as a researcher amongst several other universities. With your over 10 years of industry experience, you are not the typical academic. You are a mother of 4. 3 of them are students and graduates of the Aalto University. And your areas of research, you have done research on 1, the role of social capital and interpersonal relations in managing people and interpersonal or intercultural conflicts. 2, boundary spanners who facilitate interaction, connect and link people across functional, language, and cultural boundaries in international organizations. 3, talent identification and management. 4, servant leadership. And 5, if and how digitalization actually influences HR work. Does this describe you well, Kristiina? And is the digitalization of HR just a lot of hype?
Well, that was a long list, first of all, so close enough. I guess the research interest, I'm a professor at the School of Business as well as in my background, and the university leadership positions are always fixed-term positions. Maybe my research interest can be summarized with people management in large multinational organizations.
Right.
So here we go.
Okay.
Great to be here.
And is the HR digitalization a lot of buzz?
Well, that's a big question. I think all industries are changing, and digitalization as a broad term covering many aspects from AI to data to real-time systems is changing most industries, including the HR function in companies, I think.
Okay, thank you.
So, Kristiina, you're a researcher, you're a professor, and I've been following your career for quite a while.
We've also been working together, Alexei.
Okay. Well, right. But now you're in the leadership role, and I've been also kind of working under your leadership as well, and I have to say that I really enjoyed it. So now the question...
What else can you say in this interview?
Boss, I just can't get enough. Thank you very much.
Biased.
It's not biased, it's objective opinion.
Okay.
So how would you describe your leadership philosophy?
Yeah. I believe in enabling and empowering. So I, as a leader, I'm focusing on maybe the big picture. And my role is really to support and enable people to do their best in whatever their roles are. And of course, take the organization forward through that. So as Anneli already said in the introduction, perhaps my background is not the typical of academic, but I've had 10 years of industry experience before I came to academia to do a PhD. I worked at Procter & Gamble, one of the leading fast-moving consumer goods companies in the world. I think they are among the top 25 in the Fortune list. So that was quite a school, and I really enjoyed that. Some of my experiences or sort of philosophies really come from those experiences there. But then even more so, when I came to academia, I actually felt that I learned more about the actual business than I did in the actual business.
All right.
Okay.
And, people always roll their eyes when they hear this because sometimes academia has the reputation that it's not entirely practical and a little bit removed from practice. But my experience is actually quite the opposite. And of course I was relatively early in my first 10 years were in industry, but you're so busy with whatever your operational role is that you're focusing on the sort of day-to-day operational activities and there's never enough time. But then when you actually come to academia, you get to take a couple of steps back and see a variety of organizations, how they work and compare and get the so-called helicopter view of the forest rather than being in the forest and then you see only trees. And this is my personal experience, but it's also, I think, I've been teaching executives quite a lot about strategic people management. And I think that's the feedback that I also get from there. So it's really what shaped my thinking is the combination of practical experience and maybe academic knowledge about management. And then now, most recently, of course, I've been in this provost role for 6 years now. And that's taught, of course, also, me a lot from previously as a professor. I was talking about these things, but now I get to actually, do the leadership in practice as well. And that's always a humbling experience. So I think this combination of corporate experience, academic knowledge about management and people management in particular, and then personal leadership experiences is sort of the amalgamation of how I think about leadership, and certainly something that's taught me a lot. And I think this combination is actually very rare, at least among academics.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, from my own personal experience, when I moved from supporting leaders and managers in general in a global corporation towards supporting executives, I got myself like a bit of a culture shock, because I was preparing for, I would say, the world where you would have to potentially answer or give guidance on any subject. And actually what I found was a very different experience in terms of what was the concern of our executives or senior leaders and what were they really focused on. Did you have a similar type of realization?
Yes, of course. I'm not part of those organizations. When I'm teaching, it's modules typically of 3 days. So you don't get the in-depth type of thing that you do when you sort of within the organization working with the executives. But I would say more generally, I think the combination of my experiences have led me to think that good leaders really have number of things, a combination of things. You have to be a strong strategic thinker, first of all, and those issues are the big picture. You don't go into details, but you look at the direction, sort of general direction where you want to go to as an organization, and then find ways to build the capabilities in the organization that allows the organization to go where we want to go strategically, but then also through the practices and the people, to get people to actually move to that direction. And then, that requires strategic ability, which is actually quite difficult in my experience. Many, mid managers, for example, tend to be quite focused on their role and their specific function, and getting to that sort of higher level, looking at the whole organization or where the industry is going or where your field is going to, is quite another matter. But then at the same time, you have to be quite strong operationally as well, that you understand that how do you actually move the organization to a direction that you want it to move to. And that's particularly difficult, I would say, in a university context. I can get back to that if you want to. And then thirdly, really working with people. So, this is how I actually start all my teaching, is that organizations don't do anything people within them do. So organizations are just a bunch of structures. The structures don't do anything. It's people within the organizations that do everything. So you have to work with people to make things happen. So strategy, operations, and people, I think that's the triangle.
That sounds like you have to be a superhuman to be a good leader.
Well,
to be good at all of this.
Yes and no. I think not everyone is a good leader. There is of course that, and I think most of us, if we take the general population, it's probably not something that is their strength, and perhaps not something that many of us want to do. But then it's this combination. You don't have to be perfect in everything, but you do have to be able to sort of combine those three aspects, I think, to be a good leader.
Is it so that you have to do that everything on all of these tasks by yourself, or is it a lot about creating a team?
Oh, absolutely. It's about creating, that's the with people part.
Yeah.
I mean, no, and I think if you want to talk about Finnish leadership as well, I personally don't believe in sort of hierarchical leadership, that you have a leader that knows all about everything and then just gives orders. That's first of all not the Finnish type of leadership, and also not very effective. So it's always about teamwork. It's always about communication and working together towards a strategic goal or goals.
Right. If you look at the leadership team you work in, how good are your colleagues at these three things?
I think, first of all, if I need to give a bit of background and context, I think,
Go
to
ahead.
university leadership, because that shares some similarities with company leadership, but it's also somewhat different. So we have a relatively large leadership team. So our president, rector, is the head of, it's like the CEO position, but leading the university, setting the strategic direction, and also responsible for the overall university budget and results. Then my role as the sort of chief academic officer, which is similar to the COO role in companies, is then to work with our president, on running the day-to-day operations of the university. And then we have deans, we have 6 schools, and then we have 3 vice presidents, and that's the academic leadership team. They are always fixed-term positions. So they are always 5 plus potential another 5 years. And then we have our functional leaders, HR, finance, and so on, who are then also part of the leadership team. So we have quite a large leadership team. We pay a lot of attention on leadership qualities. And I think we have, of course, biased, because, they are colleagues, but also I've been involved in recruiting most of the leadership team members, or at least on the academic side. And we pay a lot of attention to not just the functional knowledge and expertise and the strategic thinking, but then also about people skills, communication, teamwork skills. And I think it has also led to the leadership team working very well together.
Excellent.
And that is actually really important, because leading a university, you don't have all the sort of traditional tools of line management that you have in companies, and you certainly don't buy and sell, businesses and things like that. But it's more about creating alignment,
Right.
and that's so you have to spend a lot of time in creating alignment, and that's why it's really important to have all the key players in the leadership team.
Right.
Is there like a natural tension between that creation of an alignment, i.e. bringing the group together, towards a direction, and the vision and the place that you want to go? Because in general, I mean, if one person wants to get to a specific place, they can go fast. But then I think if you need to rally the troops and get everyone together on the same page, does that take more time?
Oh, that definitely takes a massive amount of more time. But it's also hugely important, especially in a organization such as university. Of course, there are other such organizations as well. Cities come to mind. They are large, multifaceted organizations that have very different, goals and contexts in the different, in their different functions. But so what we did, for example, in Aalto, we spent a lot of time and a lot of lots of different groups and within the organization, open meetings and then also different bodies that we have in the university to iteratively work towards a joint strategy. And that strategy is really guiding everything that we do. And had we just done that within the leadership team, you wouldn't get the buy-in in the organization that I think we currently have very strongly. You wouldn't get anywhere.
Right. And I hear you also involve the students, right?
Of course, yeah. That's another specificity of universities, that although students are, of course, not employees as such, so not in a traditional organizational kind of way, but the students are very much part of our community. So a university, in a sense, is more like a community than a company.
Yeah.
What about this? I guess it's not a secret that for many years Aalto has had this kind of more engineering mindset when it comes to leadership, or top leadership team. How do you see it today? Is it changing into something else? And if it does change, so how do you see your role in that?
Engineering mindset, I think potentially where that comes from is that we've had to have quite a lot of focus on processes and practices. And yes, we do have a lot of engineers because Aalto is consisting of 3 fields, technology being the largest, then business and art and design. And but we were founded in 2010 as a merger of 3 universities in each of these 3 fields, which meant that everything had to be created from scratch, and it was actually also strategic choice to create everything from scratch rather than adapt some of the processes or practices or organizations from one of the existing universities, because then it perhaps wouldn't have been a merge of equals. So, and when you don't have any processes and practices to start with, then you have to put a lot of focus on creating them.
Yeah.
And I think Pendulum now is at the stage that we have strong processes. You do need them because they actually free up the creativity. Before, let's say 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when I started, we a lot of things were done ad hoc, and it actually requires a lot of energy to actually then do things when you have to do them sort of case by case. So that's why we create processes and practices. But there's probably another driver why Alexei is saying that it's very engineering mindset is that, and that comes to a sort of again another characteristic of a university compared to a typical company. And that is that if you think about a company typically operates on one or a couple of domains or fields or industries. You are a telecom company, or you are an elevator company, or you are a startup in, business
VR,
X, VR, whatever. Exactly. But if you think about university like us, we work across all of these areas. And if you put technology, business, and art and design together, how many domains or fields in a society you actually lacking? Okay, we don't have medicine, but we even have brain imaging. Yeah. So you and needs and contexts and goals of these different fields are very, very different. Right. And each and individual unit would, of course, like to work what's best for them in that context. That's, as Alexei knows, is called the local part of global and local dilemma. And that's very visible. So global-local dilemma is a classic framework in our field of management, which basically refers to that you have needs of the whole. So global means not necessarily global as in the globe, but rather global as an organization. So interest as the organization, and then interests of the different parts of the organization. And there's always tension between these. So it's the same thing like headquarters versus subsidiaries. There's always tension between headquarters and subsidiaries, and different subsidiaries have different contexts as well. And this is what's very visible in an organization like university. So the School of Business and even the different departments in the School of Business have very different contexts compared to, for example, the School of Arts, in architecture, let's say, or in computer science. And yet, as an organization, many things, you have to standardize some of the things. Because otherwise you are just not working effectively. IT systems, for example, are very good examples of that. Or in teaching, students need to be treated in an equal manner. So you can't have one set of rules for students in program 1 and another set of rules for students in program 2, because they talk to each other first of all, and it's a principle also. Equity is an important principle. So when you're looking at the whole from one perspective, let's say what perspective from one of our 24 departments, you see a lot of sort of processes and practices that may feel engineering driven. I wouldn't call them engineering driven myself, but then you have to find a balance. You standardize what you need to standardize, and then really give the freedom to operate in the how different fields need to operate where you can.
All right.
But isn't it so also that, well, it is so that there are different schools, different departments, some are doing better than others, right? And we do have world-leading units and departments in some areas, and then others. So doesn't it create a challenge for kind of equal treatment from the leadership point of view?
I think people are surprised to see how well all of our fields have developed. But again, some perspective. In 2010, when Aalto started, we had over 50 different units and departments. Now we have 24. So we're really focusing on our strengths. We have a strategy picture where we describe the fields or the areas of research and teaching that we focus on. And we try to strengthen them with every decision. For example, all professorships go into these areas. And most of our fields are actually among the top 100 in the world. Our School of Arts is ranked number 6 in the world. So there are, and of course the business school is doing really, 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 really well. So we are, and also several fields of technology. I think marine technology is our highest ranked in number 22 in the world at the moment. So there are, but at the same time, I think strengthening the spearheads is a really important part of our strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I would liken that to many businesses have like a broad portfolio. And if you start tinkering too much at an individual product level, you might end up destroying the value of the portfolio itself, right? So it could be that while there are leaders in specific fields at the moment, in general, that could be a byproduct of the general community aspect that you talked about, that having access to a diverse set of student pools might be enabling some departments to move ahead or to get greater recognition.
I think, yes. At the same time, another characteristic of universities is something called academic freedom. So what you need to have freedom of what to research and how to teach, because exactly as you said, you don't know where the successes of the future come from. An example, AI is all the craze at the moment. Finland is actually really strong in AI, and this is an area, a field that's been going on for decades already. And in the 80s or so, in the 80s, 90s, the machine learning research was not going anywhere, and many of the countries actually, scaled it down. Finland didn't. And now we are among the top in Europe in this area. Or the same thing with quantum technology, which is another, really emerging area that may bring significant changes in the world. It's early days, but the roots of that are in the cold temperature laboratory in the 1960s and 70s, where Finland was among the world leaders in reaching temperatures very close to the absolute zero.
The coldest place in the universe.
Exactly. And that because for building quantum computers or for quantum technology, you actually need these temperatures for the technologies to work. So you can't forecast where the new breakthroughs come. You have to give freedom. You have to enable people to do what they think and use their expertise in the field. But at the same time, we need to focus because resources are not infinite. And you do that by focusing on 3 fields: technology, business, and art and design. So we are not going into humanities or medicine or so on.
Right. How do you, to unleash the creativity of these 3 areas or 24, what do you call them?
2 departments.
24 departments,
yeah.
Academic departments,
so, I guess you need to somehow foster collaboration across
Absolutely.
these. Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you do that?
Here I need to go back into Aalto's history again. Why Aalto was founded? It was really to build Finland's innovation capacity by international level, top quality international level research and teaching in and across the 3 fields. So it's in our sort of, the raison d'etre for us is the 3 fields and their collaboration. And if you think about changes and solving the big problems of today, be that from climate change to, digitalization, for example, you really need to combine the expertise, especially in these 3 fields. And therefore, we trying to do a number of things to facilitate collaboration. They range from more structured ways of coordination, such as joint professorships between two different fields, or seed funding for projects that combine different fields, to more informal ways of bringing people together in various means. And actually, there's research on innovation that shows that new ideas develop or are born when different fields or different expertise areas collide. So we seek to enable this.
Isn't it a little bit in the nature of academic research also that you sort of preserve, or it's confidential what you're researching to a certain extent? How does that notion work with collaboration, open collaboration and transparency?
I would say actually the academic research is openness.
Right.
Openness is a key value in academic research. Of course, some of the data might be confidential, especially if it's data related to people, for example. Then that's, of course, we have to follow the GDPR, etc. But openness and collaboration are actually cornerstones of academic research.
Okay.
Then when patents or discoveries are made and patents are made and startups are built, then you are in a different phase of the innovation funnel.
Right.
And that's when you have then the IPR so IPR can be a result of a research, but the research itself is typically done in collaboration.
Okay. Thanks.
Can I ask, so when it comes to business education specifically, so one thing that we discovered now based on this series of podcasts is that there are not that many Finnish leaders outside Finland. And it sounds like Aalto and other universities in Finland are doing a lot of right things, but then why then we don't see more Finns making international careers and operating outside Finnish borders?
Well, Finland is, of course, a small country, so there is that. But I would say that we have many Finnish companies that are operating internationally in a very high level. The Nokias and Kones of this world, or startups. I could use an example of IceEye. I don't know if you know that. That's a startup that has been born here actually, and it's a great example of what comes out of research and teaching at its best, creating a new niche in the satellite industry and building these nanosatellites that are the size of the milk carton compared to the ones that are the size of a car or house, and with lots of new user cases and so on. So I think we do have examples, and I'm especially proud, I think, of our younger generation, the so-called startup crowd. Another example from here in the Aalto community is Slush, that I think has reached an international level of excellence, and it's really run by students and was born here, so I have lots of hope.
So you talked about a lot of quite complicated things that you're dealing with in your daily work, difficult issues. So how do you go about doing that actually in practice? What's your average kind of working day? How does it look like?
Well, it depends a little bit on the role. So my role is very much, I'm like a hub, really, of doing many things. So my actual days consist of a lot of meetings, but there's this common, which I think a misconception, that you waste your time in meetings and do not get any work done. my personal experience is the opposite. You actually get the work done through working with people. That happens in meetings. So it's not about meetings are good or bad, but it's more about what do you do in them and how do you use them and so on. So I have a lot of meetings. Then, of course, there are also part of my work is also, sort of representing Aalto in various places outside of the Aalto or also inside. So events and things like that. And then really in different ways of driving the different areas together. For example, equality, diversity and inclusion, which is really important for us. We are a very diverse community. I think we have 117 different nationalities here in Otaniemi, which probably makes us the most international spot in this country. And also, inclusion in the sense that everyone feels at home here is really important for us. So that's really about, again, working with people, working with schools, driving our also processes and practices, but also awareness and training and grassroots activities. So here's some examples.
You mentioned, I want to go back just a little bit, because I think when you talked about Finnish leadership, you talked about like a lack of hierarchy and bringing people together and building community and all the rest of it. Is it the case that you've never experienced a type of Finnish leadership that is kind of giving orders and expecting people to follow?
I think that's, I call that old-fashioned notion of leadership. I think that's existed everywhere and still exists everywhere. So I don't think it's particularly Finnish. I think you see that in many other places, and I would argue that, in cultures where, that are characterized with a lot of hierarchy, there's more of that than in Finland, which is culturally also from Hofstede, all the way from Hofstede, described as low hierarchy country. And I think actually this shows in, again, coming back to our own sector here in the university leadership, it's a funny story. We went to visit, I leave the country out now, but an Asian country.
You can say it, we'll just bleep it. It's okay.
An Asian country with with several top universities. And we went to visit them and had a meeting with their rector, their president. And you had, I think, 5 different doors where you had a person there on each of the doors. And when we got into the elevator, we had to kick our president, our rector, to go in first, because you had to, we don't do it here. We just enter whoever happens to enter first, but there it's, entering in the right order of hierarchy is really important. And then you have these people bowing at you, and it's very, very formal. And then this rector was, of course, I think the office was on the 7th floor, the highest floor of the building. Our rector doesn't have an office. So, this is like a practical example of the differences in hierarchy. So I think we are particularly no hierarchy country here, and it also shows in the leadership. The CEOs of the companies are typically called by their first names, and not Herr Doctor so-and-so, for example, etc.
And still, in the business school, the finance department is on the top floor, right?
But I don't think that's because of any hierarchy. I think it was just a matter of
by accident,
office planning, that who fits where.
Yeah, I think that's an area for future study, to see where all of the finance departments end up.
So do you see yourself at Aalto, or you yourself as a professor of the business school, that you are growing and responsible for growing the next generational leaders?
Most definitely.
Yes.
So. This is an important role and a huge responsibility, and probably the biggest impact that we as a university can have.
and your focus areas there. What are the priorities?
Well, Alexei and others are doing their best in terms of teaching the leadership and management skills, of course. But what we are trying to do as a university is doing the same thing as we try to do with research. So educate game changers, first of all, meaning that people who have taken initiative and tackle whichever goals or issues or areas they want to tackle. And here I have an example again that I can share in a minute. But then have a broader understanding of not just their own whatever they are specializing in, but then also have work-life skills, the so famous T model, but then also an understanding of other fields. For example, I think in the business school, all the students have to take 3 credits of technology or design studies. So that's another, and of course we have specific programs as well where this collaboration across fields is built in. But here's the example. I had, again, this was a nation country, so I leave the name out, okay, a top university in the world. And their student union was visiting here, our student union, and I invited them for a casual breakfast with the provost. And then as just small talk, I asked them, what would they like to do when they graduate? And our international visitors were all talking about positions in prestigious companies or organizations, okay? What our students were talking about were what they wanted to accomplish. I want to work with the green transition. I want to build green energy. I want to work with AI. They were all about how do we make this world a better place. And that's a great description of what we're trying to do here, shape a more sustainable future. That's how we actually verbalize our purpose.
That's a lovely example. Thank you.
Yeah. Would you, I mean, before you mentioned kind of how you feel as your responsibility for building the next generation of leaders. Personally, do you feel like you're a Finnish leader or an academic leader or a general leader of global industry? Or how do you feel about those terms?
I think I have a split personality. I'm certainly an academic leader in my current role, and that's very much my identity at the moment. At the same time, I'm a Finnish leader, of course. I've actually lived and worked abroad for over 10 years over the years, so. But still the sort of Nordic values, if I enlarge from the Finnishness, is very sort of very much defined of how I think about leadership. And so in that sense, I'm definitely a Finnish leader as well. So that makes a split personality, doesn't it?
There is a discourse going on in the Finnish society about making university studies, or making foreign students pay for the university studies.
Yes.
Anything that Aalto does on that front in terms of influencing the decision makers?
Unfortunately, there's at the moment a lot of discussion in the society and also with the government on immigration-related issues, and this is clearly something that's very concerning for us. As I said, we are a very diverse community. Finland needs international talent, and we should do everything. It's our opinion that we should do everything that we can as a country to enable international talent to come to Finland because it's best for the country. And of course, I think one of the key ways is coming here through studies. Our rector has taken quite a strong stance on this publicly, and I must say I agree.
Kristiina, that was a whirlwind, I have to say, because it feels like you just sat down, but we actually covered so many topics and so many important things about the role you have and the role Aalto has in shaping the future of leadership, particularly in Finland, but probably beyond Finland, or hopefully beyond Finland. I have to say thank you for being so generous with your time. It's been great to get you in the chair. Are you still feeling okay?
I'm feeling okay, and thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and it's great that you have the podcast that's also influencing leadership for the future.
Great.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was Kristiina Mäkelä of Aalto University, Provost. Was she really the best boss ever, Alexei?
Well, one of the best ones. No, but I mean, yeah, we go a long way back with Kristiina, and we collaborated together, and she has been actually running the organization where I was part of. So only positive memories from those days.
That's good. So you're going to invite her to the party of good bosses.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, what really kind of stood out for me was interesting background where Kristiina comes from. Like she called it amalgamation of experiences. It's a cool word. I like the word. Really working in the industry, also working internationally, then now being academic after this, and now being in this position of academic leadership actually gave her a lot of food for thought, right? And kind of a lot of input for developing this kind of empowerment focused leadership style that she has, given space to people. And I experienced that actually. It really works. It's not only words. Then I think the second thing was really kind of interesting to understand the unique context of universities as organizations to lead, and the differences with typical business organizations. So universities are much more complex, I guess. No, maybe not much more, but they're more complex. There are more stakeholders, think about students and so on. So really not an easy task. And then the way she describes Aalto, for example, 24 departments, lots of academics to manage with different views and different expectations. So that was quite interesting, and I think this link to the cities as well could be something that we should explore maybe more in the future. What about Anneli?
Yeah, I mean, she added so much, or turned around so many things, or fixed thoughts that I had about academia and working here, how it is to lead at academia. Of course, I also noticed that whatever I asked, she turned it around very quickly, which was part of the fun as well. So, that was perhaps my main takeaway, that I knew nothing and now I know something.
Well, I think, in previous episodes, we've talked a little bit about how Finns maybe aren't hierarchical in terms of status, but they are perhaps competitive in terms of their educational background. And it's quite clear when we were talking that from her vantage point, she sits at a place where there is legitimate competition on competence in the academic field, in which there's lots of new business and new ideas where they export ideas and start new businesses. And so from that vantage point, Finland looks actually, I would say, very different than how it looks, whether you're in the commercial world or whether you're in a sporting or an artistic world. And from her vantage point, a lot of the challenges that we see about Finns being represented abroad, or Finns having their voices heard in comparison to other cultures and countries, it doesn't seem to be translating through to this place? Like in her view of the world, Finland is fine. We travel, we make new businesses and everything's great. And I am filled with confidence. When she talks about startups and the attitude of students here and their desire to be associated not with necessarily companies or positions, but actually with programs that make a difference. That's something that I thought was interesting. But I think where she's from, that vantage point, and maybe Alexa, you can comment on this one. Does the world seem a bit more rosy in academia?
Well, it looks more hopeful, right? Now there's more hope when you actually talk to this new generation of people and kind of discuss their level of ambitions and their goals and objectives. Things look great because they all have really high aspirations and great plans for future, how to make this world a better place. Things, of course, work slightly differently in real life later, but I think what Aalto can do is to really equip these people with competence and skills that they will need to will increase their chances to realize their dreams and their objectives. And I think, Kristiina seems to think that Aalto is on a kind of good path in doing that. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we have beautiful students here, extremely clever, and we're looking forward to attracting more students, especially international ones.
Yeah,
to Aalto. Right.
Okay. Again, thank you, Bella, behind the camera and behind the mics. Thanks to the very good people at Aalto University, including their leadership, and also to you guys for listening and for you guys for joining us in the conversation. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Next time.